And I showed up in the city. A building was sold for $1 million. They wanted. I had no money, no people. I couldn't spell Madeira Beach. All of our churches' budgets are for those inner city churches. But yet I came here, I prayed, I sowed a radical seed somewhere, and I approached this woman and I just asked the Lord, okay, I believe in Hail Marys. It's Doug Flutie time. I'm going to come up with all the crazy things to ask to have this property. Man, I had nothing. There were churches nearby. You can't get a loan for a church in America. $1 million, bro. I walk in the building and a voice speaks to this woman. I'm literally having a conversation with no leverage. I don't have the money. I don't have people. Why would I ever buy $1 million building? I walk in there and a voice tells this businesswoman, I am right across the street, by the way, from the Gulf of Mexico, where ironically we did 8 baptisms yesterday. I walk in and a voice tells, a woman's not even a Christian, Bulgarian woman. A voice says to her,
hey, everyone. Welcome again to another Supernatural Leadership podcast. My name is Sean Gaby. Thank you so much for tuning in, stopping by. Once again, if you're part of this podcast family, please share, rate, review, comment in the comments. If you've just recently subscribed to our relatively new YouTube channel, please share it. Spread the word with us. We want to help leaders become a lot more supernatural in their sphere of influence. Today, we are diving into part 2 of what we started several weeks ago with a man named James Levesque, based out of Florida. And for those of you, if you don't know and you haven't heard the first episode, I'm just going to reintroduce him, reread a little bit of his biography to give you a little bit of a taste on who he is. And then we're going to dive into today's topic, which I believe actually is going to be really powerful. And for those that are leaning towards what we're going to talk about, I believe that this is going to be so crucial for your next season. And so we have James Levesque today, again, author, church planner, international speaker. He's the founder and lead pastor of a network of Engaging Heaven churches. He has also written Revival, Hunger, and Fire and hosts the podcast Engage Heaven, along with various TV shows, including Breaking Through with James Levesque and Love Living Life. James and his wife, Debbie, have 3 beautiful children and live in Clearwater, Florida. And so, James, welcome back again. How you doing, man?
what's up, Sean? So excited, man. Round 2.
Good to see you. You got a new background today. Not the same as the last time. What's happening?
Yeah, I'm building my studio, man.
Did it burn down? Oh, you're building your studio.
Doing
Awesome.
television now.
That's awesome, man. Well, you have a lot going on. Thanks for stopping by again, having this chat. I want to highlight something that I think was really powerful. The first time that we talked, first of all, I didn't actually know really much of your story. And I felt a little bit like I was actually really wowed by the journey that God had taken you on as a 15-year-old. And then as a 17-year-old, correct me if I'm wrong, you started your first church. And I recall the story going something like you're feeding some homeless people downtown, and I guess, I don't know, he was complaining about something, and you said, shut up and eat, and now I'm your pastor. Something like that. Talk to me about that, and let's move into what God is doing in your leadership in this next season around that.
Yeah, so we started, I was 17, basically, started a church, my first church, with a pork chop and a baked potato. Just went to the fridge, grabbed it, dared to believe God. He asked me the question, if you could do anything and you wouldn't fail, what would you do? And I said I would plant a church an inch away from hell, and I felt the Lord say, let's do it. Sounds crazy. It's like, am I being punked? I didn't know what was going on. And then I went and fed the first homeless person and kept going back every day. Then I got a call from a lawyer that wanted to leave everything and help buy my first church building. And man, 40 churches later, 27 years later, 70 nations later,
Wow.
We've planted churches in many different nations of the world. And God's been so faithful, man. Just from this street kid, from Connecticut.
Yeah. And so tell me about that story, though, with that homeless guy where you kind of like, I'm going to be your pastor. I'm going to be.
Yeah. So I heated up a plate of food. And the Lord said to me, the key to kill a giant is not a slingshot in a stone, right? Because we want methods. David looked down on the Jordan River and he saw smooth stones and he used what was in his hand. I didn't have a lot in my hand, right? All I had was a pork chop and a baked potato. But at that moment, I went down to the parking garage. I heated it up. There was a man sleeping there. Actually, they would sleep in garbage bags because you'll die and it's so cold. And I kind of, called his name, shuffled him a little bit. He got out, got up, was so startled. I tried to hand him a plate of food, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I said, "Man, shut up and eat the food. I'm your new pastor. My name's James Levesque." And I shook his hand, and I told him we're going to start a church. And every single day I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to start feeding you, and I'm going to start teaching you the word of God. And yeah, and it just grew. I mean, it went to like 20, 30, 40, 50 in the garage, all street people, man. You know what I mean? And then it was like I started operating and getting frustrated, right? Peter's mother-in-law got healed of a headache. Okay, who here needs a headache? Oh, you all do because you're a bunch of drug addicts. I was like running into this like frustration of the streets. And that's when the Lord told me, if you go after the ones that nobody wants, man, I'm going to give you the ones that everyone's after. And at that moment, man, we love the poor. I feed the poor. We feed up to 100 now in that same city every day. And then
Awesome.
fast forward, ironically, I'm literally in Madeira Beach, Florida. We launched the church just under 2 years ago, and it's filled with it's filled with millionaires. It's filled with people that have, they've been super successful in life. We've had famous people here. I mean, God has created this refuge now on the beach where people are coming in from the world and they're getting transformed. And so I love both. I just love reaching people, but it's so amazing how God's been so faithful over these last 27 years, man.
So how have you, I mean, like hearing that story, I think for some people they're thinking, well, how have you fought the temptation then to just continue on or continue planting churches, not necessarily how you started planting churches, but doing it the way that now everybody says works, like the method? Because, it's like we all start off a certain way, right? In our origin story, it's like raw, it's real, life sets in, we have kids, we got responsibilities, we get watered down a little bit. We're like, I'm just going to do it maybe the easy way, the less messy way. How do you fight that temptation?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's all the same principles, right? The scene changes. The bank may have a little more or less money. It doesn't matter. Like we've got to use what we're in hand. See, planning churches it's not as much about red tape, bro, and all of the lines of like almost assessing you out of the call of God. And it's really about burning, right? Acts 4 says that they saw the faith of Peter and John. They saw their boldness and they were amazed because they were unschooled and ordinary men. But here's the kicker, and this is the qualifier, bro. They could tell that they've been with Jesus. For me, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for flame. I'm looking for passion. I'm looking for fire because that passion, bro, is going to take cities and regions. And so, for me, every time, I mean, listen, let's fast forward, bro. 2 years ago, I came to Madeira Beach, Florida. When I tell you there's 0 churches here, there is not any. There's not even a speckled Presbyterian church. I mean, there's one church far down the road. There's not churches on the beach, bro. So in the natural, I'm being told it's never going to work. Nobody there wants to go to church, all that kind of stuff, And this is less than 2 years ago, man. And I showed up in a city. A building was sold for $1 million. They wanted. I had no money, no people. I couldn't spell Madeira Beach. All of our churches' budgets are for those inner city churches. But yet I came here, I prayed, I sowed a radical seed somewhere, and I approached this woman and I just asked the Lord, okay, I believe in Hail Marys. It's Doug Flutie time. I'm going to come up with all the crazy things to ask to have this property. Man, I had nothing. There were churches nearby. You can't get a loan for a church in America. $1 million, bro. I walk in the building and a voice speaks to this woman. I'm literally having a conversation with no leverage. I don't have the money. I don't have people. Why would I ever buy $1 million building? I walk in there and a voice tells this businesswoman, I am right across the street, by the way, from the Gulf of Mexico, where ironically we did 8 baptisms yesterday. I walk in and a woman's not even a Christian, Bulgarian woman. A voice says to her, now there's investors putting billions of dollars all around my little town. A voice tells this woman, this is the man you're going to give your property to.
Wow.
Do any terms that he says, because that's for the Lord. And she looked at me with tears welling up. And she said, look, every investor wants to come here. They were offering me $1 million just for the land. But you promised me something. I don't care what you do with this property. Please promise me it will always be a church.
Wow.
And by the way, it was a bar. It was a bar and a package store when she bought it and ran it. And she looked at me and said, please
Man.
tell me. And I said, I promise you. And now it happened again with the property behind me. So we are about to build a training center for the nations. And we planted this church 2 years ago, no money, no people. And now we're about to have an acre of land across the street. So my point is, it doesn't change. You know what I mean? Like what the crackhead was one thing and the multi-million-dollar building is another, but it's the same belief. Like God can do anything. And I believe that church planting, like planting new churches, means reaching new people, bro. And I'm convinced that it's the greatest way for us to see cities and regions taken.
Man, that's amazing. Let me ask you a question. I mean, so many amazing things in what you just said, and it's all supernatural to me because you would have
Crazy.
not. I mean, if that businesswoman did not hear that voice, the voice of God say to her, "This is the guy," which I think is a lot of the miss sometimes in these things not happening, is you don't have maybe the business people that are in tune with something like that, because that may not feel like a lot of money to her, but it's a big step because she could have made more money probably selling
Way
it to
more.
somebody else. So she's losing money but gaining eternity. So
Right.
like it takes a mature business person to think that way here, lean into that. But let me just ask you this question. In your sort of like school of thought when it comes to church planting, I know there are some people out there listening and they're like, man, I'm not like as radical as this guy. Like I feel called to plant a church, but I just don't feel I got to do it like sort of the methodical way. I'm going to, go to this conference or go to this person because they planted a church and I'm just going to, do it the typical way. Like, what do you say to those guys that just feel like I can't do it like that way? Like, what do you say to them?
Yeah, church planting in North America has dude, it's on life support. Let's be real. The biggest church planting organizations we know are not planting a ton of churches. One did 50 churches last year. One did, I think it was a mid 2000 study that basically said there were like 5,000 churches that closed and only 2,000 opened in like 2012. Like the reality is, why? We have red taped and we've assessed ourselves out of the presence of God. We've taken something that in the early church they burned with God, right? They didn't, you tell me after Pentecost, they needed assessments for everyone in Asia to hear the word of the Lord for 2 years, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
why
totally.
why do we have all this red tape? Because we're
Right.
scared. We're scared that the wrong person is going to become a pastor. Well, I think we literally hit that. I think that's where we are right now. When you look at First Timothy 3, all the criteria of
Yeah.
being a pastor,
Yeah.
bro, that all you have to do is be with Jesus, and you're not going to be cheating on your spouse, and you're not going to be taking money, and you're not going to be acting crazy. We're so scared
Yeah.
to launch pastors that don't have the right character that
Right.
now most people sit at home and go, I can't do that. I can't do that. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't pass these assessments. There'd be no
Totally.
baptisms in the ocean if I followed that. So I think it comes down to disruptive thoughts, like not in an unhealthy way, in a
Yeah.
holy way.
Yeah.
Are we willing to ask God, what does it look like in this century to see healthy churches planted? Like, where are these people? You know what I mean? They might be sitting
Right.
at home. It could be an average person. So I hope that
So
didn't take it too crazy.
yeah, so like what do you think? I mean, this is like we could really banter here a little bit because like what do you think about this you're a leader. You've been a leader in the church world for a long time. I've been a leader in the church world for a long time. I've seen a lot of crap, seen a lot of stuff. A lot of people fall, a lot of people that maybe shouldn't be on the platform, let's say managing chaos, right? That's the life of a leader often, is that you're managing chaos at times. There's seasons of that, ebbs and flows. Like, what would you say to the person that says, well, how do I know that I'm supposed to plant a church? Like, what would you say? I mean, yeah, we have the elder qualifications, we have the Titus, we have the
Sure.
Timothy, we have sort
Sure.
of like the baseline foundations. Like, you got to be not a
Sure.
drunk, you know,
Right.
love your family,
Yeah, for
manage
sure.
your
Right.
household, all that kind
Right.
of stuff.
All
But
those things.
what would you, so outside of that, let's say someone has all those things, what
Right.
would you say, go a little deeper, is really the qualification of someone who should actually be the planter and not just be on the team planting?
Sure. I think a few things. I think that first of all, a church planter, they burn to plant churches. They're entrepreneurs, man. You know what I mean? Like, dude, the devil is not sitting in someone's ear going, you should plant a church, man. This is your, like, come on, bro. When I was hearing this, I knew it wasn't the devil. Church people were not going to tell me to go plant a church, but and neither would the devil. You know what I mean? So, what is
True.
our motive? Are we
It's
just
true.
trying to be the boss? Are we just trying to get noticed? It's not going to work, bro. But if you love people and you burn, like I burned to preach the gospel, I burned to teach. I love people. Like I literally could be the evangelist. That's not my fulfillment, bro. My fulfillment is baptizing people, meeting with people, loving families. Like that is what thrills my heart, to watch communities of people grow in the Lord and whole families come to God. Like that burns in my heart. That is your qualifier. Like if you know, like I really want to do this, and I think that's when you take that first step, because this current Christian structure is not conducive to dreamers. Like
That's
this
good.
current setup, you're not allowed to
Yeah.
dream, dude. It's more like you better fit this mold. It's almost like we're guilty until proven innocent. Like these
True. Yeah, it's
assessments,
true.
like you can't dream. But you know what? In the Bible, when they touch God, think about this, dude. The church at Antioch. Think about this. The Antioch church. At one point, now Syria, it was even over the church of Jerusalem. It was so powerful. Dude, we're Bible guys. You couldn't tell me who started the church. And we're
Yeah.
talking about Antioch, bro. Book of Acts. Paul and Barnabas staying. We don't even know who did it. Why? Because the Bible says Stephen was martyred and believers spread out all over.
Yeah.
And some dude was like, let's just keep doing let's just keep doing the stuff. Bro, I will take that every day of the week.
Wow.
Then these institutionalized pieces of flesh that come out, and I'm not against education. I'm training and coaching pastors now. But they come out with head knowledge, no heart connection.
Yeah.
They look at it as a career track instead of a call.
Yeah.
And they're not effective in what they're trying to do, man.
Well, and that's the issue. I think that's kind of what where I was going with the question too, is that you have so many people that have the head knowledge. So they maybe came from the business world. They're like, I'm going to plant a church. I'm going to be methodical. And maybe it works to some degree, but maybe they're not supposed to be the one that carries it. And then, pandemic happens, everything falls through the cracks, and all these churches close down. Well, I wonder, did these churches close down because they were built on a faulty foundation? Did these churches close down because the pandemic, I mean, this, didn't make anybody crazy. It just revealed the crazy that was already there. If you had cracks, I mean, everything was getting exposed.
Yeah,
relationally,
totally.
your church culture, everything. It was all getting filtered out. So
Right.
I think, I wonder, I'm like, there's these people that come out with head knowledge. They don't have the heart, like you said. They have this idolatrous view of like I'm going to be the church planner. Like, it's not like I want to plant a church because I want to see the kingdom. And I'm making a generalization here. Like, I'm not making a judgment on everyone's heart, but like, it seems as though you go through these educational systems, you get the knowledge, and you have this idolatrous view of the end goal after the education is done, that I'm going to be the man and all is going to be good. But that's just not reality. Like, you have to know that you have the grace of God to support that specific calling. And it takes sometimes doing it to figure that out. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I do. I think pastoring is a little different than church planning, but I think you're basically, if you're an entrepreneur, a self-starter, somebody that's a pioneer, like those are giftings that God gave you, right? It is like entrepreneurs are like, they take big risks and they're willing to spend money and they're willing to go out on a limb. Most people play it safe, Sean. Most people are not trying to take risks in life. Most people don't move within 40 miles of where they were born. My mother passed a few years ago. She died on floor 2. She was born on floor 4. And for 78 years, that was her life. You know what I mean? Like, I look at that and I'm like, that's not a life to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so if somebody's there and they're wanting to do it, like look, I'll tell you this. I was at an AG church, your typical church, and I'm up in a prayer meeting with the pastor. I don't think I'm qualified. I'm not going to pass their assessments. I'm like a troubled kid to them. And the pastor wraps up prayer and points to the sanctuary below us. And he goes, You know how many people down there have the call of God in their life and they're not doing nothing? It's more people than you'll ever know. They're not doing what they're called to do. I'm sitting there at 16, bro, and I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. And I said to the Lord, I would rather somebody one day go, remember James Levesque, and he jumped out of the boat and got and burned and crashed. I'd rather you say that about my life than ever say that I'm sitting down there with the call of God in my life and I'm not doing nothing. So
come on.
I was willing to roll the dice.
You're
because
preaching,
I knew
you're preaching right now, man. I'm like feeling
right?
I'm feeling the energy here.
Come on, Sean. We're playing churches. So anyway, I was ready to roll the dice, man, and just take a risk to see, am I crazy? And then I realized like my crazy was validated.
I love that, man. Like I was just gonna add, like, I'd rather be the Peter that sinks than the John, let's say, that stays in the boat.
Let's go.
I'd rather be the and to me, because he still walked on the water.
Let's go.
You know, and he learned something that none of the other disciples learned, that it's possible to walk on the water, because he did.
Come on, man.
And I think that's, to me, like, whether it's church planning or anything in life, the boat is never the safest place to be. It's always the water. It's always the dangerous place with the Lord. It's never the safe place with man. It's the dangerous place with God. And I think we miss it. We forget. We think that God is always this safety. Yes, he's safe, but in the danger. Like, his safety is for the dangerous life, the disruptive life that we're called to live. And so,
it's true, man.
So you have this passion. I mean, like, it's taken you 27 years to come to this place where you just realize, man, I'm like, now I'm scaling up a little bit. Like, I see you, like, you're scaling up a wall, a whole new dimension in your life, and you're launching this whole class around planting churches. Are you doing this? And I want you to, like, explain a little bit of what you're doing. Are you doing this like with I'm just going to use methodology. I know we've kind of used that term loosely, like sort of the pork chop potato way, as far as like just go in there on the street, like, I'm your pastor, kind of like you did with the homeless guy? Or, I mean, I know, I'm sure you've developed stuff in the last 27 years that it's just not all of that. Tell us about your sort of what it looks like to plant a church the James Levesque way.
Sure. Yeah. We launched a site that you can go to called startachurchfromscratch.com. Start a church from scratch. And basically, I'm bringing people in for 5 days. I'm going to dump my life into them about the 5 things to do to plant a church. And then we'll have some sort of mentorship after that. But what I'm looking for is me. I'm looking for the young man, and he could be 50 years old, Sean. He could be, I don't care. I'm looking for me. Somebody that burns for God. You know, I was at the watch dealer, the jewelry store, and this guy was telling me, he's a successful Rolex dealer. He was telling me that he went to Bible school, and then he said to me, but I wake up every day and wonder if I missed my destiny because I didn't say yes to God. Bro, listen, I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you. I'm looking for you. And I did. I prophesied over him. I laid hands on him because that's who I'm looking for. I'm not looking for the qualified, bro. I'm looking for those that burn, and then God will qualify the call. You know what I mean? He doesn't, he don't call the qualified. And so I'm looking for me. I'm just looking for there's no system for me, bro. I think I told you, I remember writing a letter to the Assemblies of God superintendent, Thomas Trask. And I'm like, what are you going to tell me? I'm on the streets, miracles, bro. I'm burning to plant a church in my house, and I don't fit your system. Then what's your answer? And he literally told me, find a Paul to your Timothy. He said, I feel God all over your letter. I know you're called. Find a Paul. Wow. I wouldn't even fit the system. So guess what? That's what I'm giving you now. I'm giving myself to help other Jameses and whoever, Shannons, to launch and believe God. And, you know, somebody was asking me, well, I remember years ago, a young man came to me, said, I just want to start a church. I just can't, it's too hard. And I said, bro, this is what I told him to do. I said, open your house, invite people, open the word, share your life, go plant a church. That's it, bro. Stop playing with me, man. That's it, dude. That's it. Share your life and invite people, open your house, open the word, let's go. And now he has a successful church now. He's on his second property that he's buying. So You know,
Man, come on. It's awesome.
yeah. So I think we've got to like, let's normalize church planning, please. Let's stop making it something that's only for an elect amount of people that are in their 50s with a collar. Like, dude, my city needs Jesus, man. As I was meeting with that woman for that building on the beach, there was a man in his boat with his family as the sun's going down, and he's screaming, God, where are they? You said you would send somebody to come help us here. Where's the pastor? Why isn't he answering the call? I'm
Wild.
dying here spiritually as I'm getting the property.
Wild.
Bro.
Wild. That is awesome, man. And you moved there though, not like because of like, did you move to where you are now for something else? Like this is relatively new, right?
Yeah, a couple years ago, just over 2 years ago, we moved to Tampa to do CTN for my Breaking Through program.
Okay.
And I was on 5 days a week on the airwaves. I was just taking a step of faith. I knew the owner of the station really well. And he would later pass, sadly. And then I just, I knew I would always have a church. It wasn't what I came for. And then as that building opened up, I realized that I was going for it again. But
So you
this
didn't
for
know going in, you didn't know this was gonna like you didn't have it
that wasn't
necessarily. Wow.
no man. I got all the churches in Connecticut right now that I run. So I was flying back and forth every week to all my congregations up there. I oversee actively like 10 churches. I'm preaching in them, Montana, all over. So I'm all Canada. So like I'm actively busy. And then I realized like God was ready to give me a legacy moment where I
Wow.
would see a training center established and I would give the next season of my life into dumping all that I've learned into people to do what God's called them to do.
So you're like I don't even want to call it a system, but system. Your way of doing this is necessary. Like, if I'm wrong, correct me here. Sounds like it's more of the hands-on approach. You're looking for a you. You're going to coach a you.
Yeah.
It's less about like go through my course, do these systems,
Right.
check off these boxes. It's more about you one-on-one mentoring these guys,
Right.
or these women. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Now I will have a course eventually. We'll have a church planning university, but it's not curriculum, bro. It's more like me coaching you. There'll be a system, video, scripture, theology, but it's really the personal one-on-one touch. Like we've got to redefine training, bro. These people, think about it. And I love all these Bible schools. I've preached at all of them. Reading, Toronto, I've been in all of them. What are we doing? Like, what are they just like helps ministry? Are we just looking to get some helpers on a side? Like, what are we doing? There's no church planning anything for anybody. We go through, and here's what I see. Oh, I went to this school for 4 years. Now I'm at this one. Oh, now I'm here. Now I'm at this one. It's like, what are we doing? Like, we thought we were in ministry school. Where's the ministry part of it? Like, we need to see churches planted and people launched out, pioneers released. So, these schools are incredible and they were all for an amazing season, but we need personal mentoring. We need fathers to take sons, mothers to take daughters, and let's launch people. Because here's the misconception. The Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go. Boom. Not in the way you should go, in the way they should go. I'm not looking for a church planner to be me or have my journey or my story. I'm finding their story.
Yeah.
Like how they're wired, how they're called by God. What are their strengths? What are their, like, I want to empower people to do their journey and just give them tools that I've learned over the last 27 years.
Man, so I think that's amazing. I really like getting fired up about this because I feel like what you're doing is you're unraveling the complication that has shrouded church planting. Like I see it like you're unraveling it, and I almost think, man, you should have called your website "Uncomplicated Church Planning" because that's what it sounds like to me. Like taking the complications, because I love it. It's just raw, it's real, it's personable, it's kingdom, and I think that there's so much good. And this is why we do this. I mean, it's a supernatural leadership podcast. There's so many good leadership podcasts out there. We're not trying to say that, this is the one. There's so many that I love leadership podcasts. And so many of those leadership podcasts out there are built upon principle. My hope is that these conversations, the content that comes out on this channel, is less built on principle and built on presence that
Yes.
operates within principle. It's a big difference.
Amen.
Jesus was a presence-led leader that operated within principle. He was not a
Love it.
principle-led leader that sometimes had the presence. And that's what you're doing. You're planting churches from like a raw presence-driven mentality. Yeah. And I love that. What would you say to the hyper, like, I'm sure that no cessationists probably listen to my podcast, but what would you say to like the conservative guy that maybe is on a new journey into the supernatural, that says they have all the systems, they're really smart, they're brilliant, they have all that, they struggle with the supernatural? I mean, if they're listening to this, they're probably on a journey. What would you say to them in this process of planting a church?
Yeah,
I think because I feel like there's principles that apply.
Sure. I think this is the hour to lift your anchor, not to drop your anchor, but lift your sail. Wow. Like we try to find safety in anchoring, but this is not that season. As we lift our sail, the wind of the Holy Spirit takes over. And I promise you, like, God is not like, God's ability to keep you is greater than the enemy's ability to deceive you. And there's so much fear-based Christianity, theology, deception out there. And I can tell you, when I lift my sail, the wind of God blew me to places that I never thought I would be. And so it's hard to take that first step. So if they're listening to the podcast, listen to more episodes, embrace the Holy Spirit, just lift a little sail and watch the wind of God start to take. It's supernatural. This is not me, Sean. I'm not this good. It's supernatural. It's the wind behind you. And you're like, dude, I'm not this good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not good enough to come down here. And you know what I mean? Like, it took this in Madeira for me to go, wow, maybe I have some tools here that I need to start giving to other people, because I really know what, you know what I mean? I have done this. There's a grace. It's only a grace. But if we don't have the supernatural, then we're going to keep ripping it. We're going to keep ripping it down to man's agenda and man's methods. And we're going to constantly try to give God credit for what we could have done without the Lord. And when we're talking about supernatural, it is supernatural. You can't do it by men. You can't do it by training. It is the wind of training alone. It's the wind of God that takes our sails.
That's amazing. So let me ask for one spoiler. And maybe it's not a spoiler, because I'll pick your brain on this, and then I want you to really dive into how people can register for your webinar. You have a webinar coming up, which is when? When's that coming up?
I'm doing them on Tuesday. So the next 2 Tuesdays, I'll be doing a webinar. Okay. But everything they need is startachurchfromscratch.com, because June 13th, we launch 5 days of a challenge, Start a Church from Scratch. And I'm telling you, for 1 hour a day, I'm giving everything that I've learned that you need to plan a church. 5 steps.
Starts June 14th. Okay.
June 14th. Yeah.
So maybe one spoiler. I don't know if this is a spoiler. Tell me if it is or not. But I'm sure, unless you're like superhuman and you're like unfazed by anything, that in 27 years of church planning, there may have been a moment where you were like, I don't want to do this anymore. Or it may have been a moment where I don't think I can handle this anymore. Tell us about that moment and how you overcame it.
Yeah. So in the early days of planting a church, you know, if you look at my tattoos, I got tattoos everywhere. In the early days, I put a tattoo here, and it says "Death before dishonor." I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for betrayal, man. I wasn't ready, because I'm all in. Like, I'll go down with the ships, bro. If we're not sin, I'm saying if we're boys, I'm with you. I'm gonna guide you, stand with you. I'm gonna tell you the truth. We're gonna pursue the best of God. But I'm so loyal, and I wasn't ready for betrayal, man. I wasn't ready to open my life up to people that to me was a priority, but to them it was an option. You know what I mean? And so in the early days, I probably was a little more hurt because I put too much into like you being with me forever, because that's what I'm in this for. You know, I would do crazy things like ask my leaders for a 50-year commitment. I literally put a contract in front of them. I'm like, bro, I'm like, yeah, my wife's like, what?
That's what. That's wild.
My wife's like, faith. What do you
That's a step of faith right there, man. I've ever heard one.
Bro, and they signed it, and they're reminding me of their tenure.
Bro, I'm calling this episode 50-year contract church planning
Let's
core
go.
team leadership.
I did. I put a contract because I thought I'm marrying this vision and I don't want
Wow.
you to just date it. So
Oh, I love it.
here's what you need to understand in the contract. We're going to not get along at times. We're going to be frustrated with each other. But this contract tells us that we're here for a greater vision, which is seeing cities transformed, lives transformed. And I've never referred to the contract after it. It was more of a faith thing. But the reality is I wasn't ready for betrayal. And so the Bible does say in the day of his power, people will freely give. And what I wish I learned early is that when betrayal comes, God will bring you other faithful partners.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we spend so much energy on who's not in the room, who's not answering the call, who's not on board. It's like we have to stop worrying. If they're not here, it's okay. They do them, we'll do us. My call wasn't a conference call, and you ain't got the number anymore. But as soon as one would exit, Sean, another would come. But I would be so worried and hurt because of this, trying to clear something up over here, and I'm missing a partner in a building piece for the next season.
Come on.
And so it takes a lot of hurt. Yeah, it takes a lot of hurt and some tattoos. But now, like here's one thing. Here's one thing I learned about church planning. Here's a secret. You know what scaffolding is on a building?
Yeah.
When you build a building, they need scaffolding for a season. And guess what? The scaffolding comes down. Here's a freebie, bro. When you're building a church, some people are scaffolding, and it's okay. God will bring them here just to get things started, and they're supposed to leave, and you know it's okay. Not everybody's here for the long haul. Some will be, but I wasn't ready for the scaffolding to fall off, bro. I thought it was betrayal and personal, but it needed to come down.
Well, it's like, yeah, that's powerful, man. Judas needed to betray Jesus for him to fulfill ultimately his destiny, build the biggest building ever called salvation, miracles, gospel, kingdom.
It's true.
Healing, eternity. So I think I love that. So you're not in your course or in your challenges and all the things you're doing coming up, you're not suggesting that people need to sign a 50-year contract.
No, not at all.
You need to find 10 people that will commit to 50 years.
100-year vision.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate, those moments when you're green in leadership and you make these radical sort of like expectations. Like they're genuine. They're not like ill will. They're not like, there's no real ill intention with it. It's just genuinely, you want to see this thing do what you believe it's intended to do. And so you do all these things to safeguard, maybe to protect, to honor, and you think it's a good thing until you realize after, hey, like that doesn't work. And I would say, to echo everything you just said, I've learned my most valuable lessons in leadership through seasons where I felt betrayed, whether or not it was real betrayal or just feeling betrayed, because there's two different things.
Totally,
there's betrayal, and there's feeling betrayed. And I've had to navigate how feeling betrayed is different than being betrayed.
So good.
And sometimes in those seasons, they're mixed. You don't know. You cannot discern from the two, right? And I've had to learn, I think I've learned the most valuable lessons. And I'd have to say that I've become a better leader, not a bitter leader, through the hardest moments that either felt like betrayal or were betrayal. And I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful. I'm not calling everybody that's ever left me a Judas, but I'm thankful for the ones that have been like a Judas in my life. And I'm thankful for the ones that you just exited the season because they needed to go for their sake. It's good for them. They're building. They're doing what God called them to do. I hope, I believe. And they couldn't come into the next season with me. God had to exit some to introduce some others. And I think that happens so much in leadership. And if we can get that, man, we'll win a lot more. So, okay, so I love that, man. Oh, you're like firing them up. We could go into this. This is a whole other topic. Betrayal is a whole other crazy leadership topic. But okay, so people want to sign up for your webinar. It's coming. June 14th is your official launch. We're going to put all the info in the description. So howtostartachurch.com, is that what it is?
Nope, startachurchfromscratch.com.
Startachurchfromscratch.com. And in the next 2 weeks, even though this episode's going to come out a little bit later, you're doing webinars. Now, when do those webinars keep going through the month of June?
Nope, there's just going to be two. So I'm doing one tomorrow and then one next Tuesday. So that's why it may not launch at the right time. But as soon as those webinars are done, I'm going to be doing them twice a month, like the beginning of each month. So I can give you links to both for the webinar and the Start a Church from Scratch challenge. So
Awesome.
we're going to be running challenges once a month to help empower people to plant churches. We're going to be running free webinars, 1 hour webinars a couple times a month. And then shortly after, we're going to launch, hopefully a church planting university where I can, we'll take certain applications and I can mentor people in planting churches.
And I'm assuming this is like international. This is not just like North America.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. We got a church in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. I planted a church in Africa. Oh yeah.
Nova Scotia, man. My land, man. I don't live in Nova Scotia, but my land, Canada. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, man.
You're part Canadian, really.
Yeah, my wife's Vancouver.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, this is awesome, man. I want to encourage everybody. Your activation for this episode is to check out James, his websites, all the stuff that he's doing with the webinars and his challenges and this website that he's launching. Check it out. If you know people that feel called to plant a church, you know people that have a desire or even interested, like curious about it, I would encourage you to share this with them. Get them connected, nothing to lose, but everything potentially to gain. I know that God's going to do amazing things. What were you going to say?
I also I haven't even really announced this, but I have an ebook called "Am I Called to Plant a Church?" I'll give it to you, and you can send it to whatever listener want it. We can email it out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm sure somewhere in the book it's like 50-year contract, tattoos.
No,
shave your head. No, I'm just joking. That's awesome, though, man. Hey, I really appreciate this conversation, and really hoping that everybody listening to this or watching this is getting something from it. Pulling some truth, some nuggets of wisdom from this to plant in this next season. And I would say this, even if you're in business, if you're in other areas of life, like some of these things, these principles that you may learn from even just being on the webinar or being in, the course or something, I'm sure you'll learn something, take something from it, even for other areas of your life. Is that a true statement?
Absolutely. Yeah. Ministry launching, personal development. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, James, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And thank you to all the listeners out there. Once again, my name is Sean Gaby with the Supernatural Leadership Podcast. We believe everyone has a leader within. So we're hoping and we believe that leader can become a lot more supernatural. Until next time.